Hey Laowinners, it's Lao86 here with another video, and I promised all of you Laowinners that we would do a TikTok deep dive. And TikTok is a social media program that kind of followed up from Vine. If you guys remember, Vine was this short, very bite-sized ADD format where you record very, very quick videos. And it was very popular. I don't know why it ended up dying, but it ended up turning into this app called Musical.ly. Now, Musical.ly eventually changed its name to TikTok, and it's actually a Chinese-owned company that in China is called Douyin. And Douyin is kind of like Vine. It's basically a short media format where you record videos, very popular amongst the youth. In fact, it's one of the most popular apps, not only in China, but TikTok is one of the most popular apps in the entire world right now. The problem is, because it's Chinese-owned, you're seeing a ton of soft power propaganda on TikTok. Douyin in China has always been full of soft power because it's so damn popular. I'm gonna go through the dichotomy of the Chinese soft power propaganda you see on TikTok that promotes the Chinese government to Americans and Westerners on TikTok versus the more hard power propaganda that the Chinese government uses on the Chinese platform. And I think you guys are gonna enjoy this. This is a lot more lighthearted than what we've been going through. I think everybody needs a break. Still covering Chinese propaganda, which is heavy stuff, but at the same time, I think you're gonna find this transparently hilarious. Let's just get into it. Now, what you guys might know Chinese TikTokers for, or even Douyin users, is for eating crazy stuff. Or you can see this kind of like soft power propaganda that you see. If you open up TikTok, you're like, oh, look at how organized the Chinese students and soldiers are, this kind of stuff. But it's morphed into something much bigger than that just because of its extreme popularity. So a lot of it is more veiled as, I don't know, just promotion of China. And a lot of it's just very overt. Now, this woman here, we have covered to death, but she is basically a woman that moved from China to California. And she has been spouting things like Chinese people don't eat dogs and all this kind of stuff. She's become a meme on the internet in herself. It's not just us that's covered this. But this is a good example of soft power from China in America, trying to appeal to a Western audience and shift the narrative. So let's go through some of her stuff.
I've not even gone out of my house at all. But today, I will go out and to enjoy the sunshine here in California. It is Chinese New Year, everyone. Happy New Year's. The whole point I want to share all this here is want us to be aware of what is going on, but don't panic. It's curable.
So if we look at the narrative here, if we look at the date as well, this is January 24th. This is when the Chinese government was trying to tell people to like chill out and it's not transmissible and it's curable and everything's going to be fine. But she initially started this pulling at the heartstrings of Americans saying, I'm from Wuhan, I'm from Hubei, and this is so dire and we're having such a difficult time. And look at how it progressed. So first she's like, it's curable, don't worry about it.
I'm sharing the news with you guys here in California. They're in Hubei. That's where I'm from. And some of my families are doctors who are working in the hospital right now. The whole city, all the hospitals are full and some of the medical supplies are running out. It's really dangerous working environment.
So first, it's not a big deal. It's curable. Second, not only is it curable, but now it's a dire circumstance and a lot of her family and people she knows are affected. This whole pulling at the heartstrings thing is something you'll see in soft power propaganda from China on Western media platforms because it kind of makes people feel bad. There's a victim here, right? And that's fine. Let's keep going.
March 18th, 2020. I want to remember how homesick I am right now in California.
So then it got weird because instead of being really concerned about Hubei or Wuhan, now all of a sudden there was other videos on her channel about this, about how she's so terrified to be in California and it's so much better in China and China did the world a good thing. And now she almost wants to go home. She's terrified and homesick. Now, this is a very gentle form of soft power. This is one where she's building an audience within America, playing the victim card. She claims there's a lot of anti-Chinese racism and all this kind of stuff. And then she goes on to play things like this, where it's showing how awesome China is sending all these masks to the European Union and how efficient the Chinese government is, efficiencia, she says. It's so efficient. Look at the subway in Wuhan is testing for reopening. Look at how well they dealt with this whole pandemic. Everybody is disinfecting. Everything in China is so great. And then goes on to talk about how bad California's dealt with this. So that, to me, is not a massive deal. I find her voice and her message very, very transparent. It's very clear that when you're posting state propaganda from China in America on this like American audience app, what your motives are. She has a very big tendency of banning people that say anything bad about the Chinese government. And that's quite clear to me, right? But that's the problem, is that this is trying to appeal on a very base level to Americans from the whole pulling at the heartstrings aspect. Now, this other channel I found is very interesting. It was once called Chinese News, but is now called One Team Media. And these are some Eastern European people that read off of a script about how awesome China is. And this is your typical white monkey job, where you're getting paid to do something to promote China or promote something within China, but you don't necessarily know anything about it. I want to go through this and show you. This is on American TikTok. This is not on Chinese TikTok. This is what the Chinese government thinks is going to appeal to Westerners and make them think that China's awesome. So this guy goes on to talk about how Chinese cities make as much money as other countries.
Chinese cities make as much money as other countries. Shanghai is the financial center of China and makes as much money as the Philippines. Beijing is the political center and produces as much as the United Arab Emirates. Shenzhen is the point of innovation and produces as much as whole Sweden.
This chick, she is the other half of the channel, where she talks about like things that, awesome things about China as well. It's pretty much the same thing.
Invented. Part 3. Toothbrush, domino, ice cream, porcelain, and TikTok.
Now, this whole hiring Eastern European people to do like the bidding of China and to make China look like an awesome place is nothing new to me.
I am Richard from England, European General Agent of the Ginger Boss.
The thing is, this channel took a very weird turn for me, because it wasn't just these like random Eastern European people talking about how awesome China is. That doesn't matter. That's just very thinly veiled propaganda to me. But then they got this this other guy that appeals to Western sensibilities, you know, intellectualism, questioning things, you know, what's the truth, what's not the truth. So apparently this guy's an anthropology professor at Shanghai University. I'm seeing this everywhere on American TikTok. And he does this like circular reasoning bullshit. I've never seen somebody say something for so long that means absolutely nothing. And I feel really bad for his students at Shanghai University, which is a very good school. They have to sit in his classes, because you'll come out of an hour lecture and I'm just assuming you haven't learned anything. You have to see this. This is fantastic propaganda.
Said, oh, you eat dogs.
People you know who eat cats and dogs.
Oh, yes. Like my Korean friend, yes.
Well, any like Chinese friends?
Wait, so you'll see, this is a typical deflection. If you bring up the consumption of dog meat with a lot of Chinese people, it's a contentious issue for a lot of reasons. A lot of people in China don't eat dog meat. The fact of the matter is it's widespread, and it's in almost every province across the country. Winston and I have both seen dog meat restaurants across the entire nation of China. But what they'll often do is just blame it on Korean people. They'll be like, Korean people eat it, you know, but us Chinese, that's old. We don't do that anymore. So he does the double deflection. He's like, yeah, my Korean friends eat dog meat. And then they're like, what about your Chinese friends? And he's like, oh, they're Chinese, by the way, like in a condescending tone. What? Okay.
But like, what do you think of them like eating dogs? Because you don't eat dogs. Are you against it, or?
No, I'm not. I mean, that was a long time ago. We went to school together with my classmates, and then at that time I was very sort of unconscious on this kind of issues. He just said, oh, you eat dogs. Really? It's like a Muslim friend or classmate would say, you know, I would never go with you in any restaurant because that's not halal.
Then they always end this. So what did we learn in this clip? Absolutely nothing, right? Do Chinese people eat dogs? What do you think about dog eating? He didn't actually give an opinion. He said, oh, I'm not against it, but, you know, back then I didn't know any better. Okay. Normality is to be different. Every culture is different. One day you need to be aware of your difference. What does that mean? I'm dying to know, Professor. Please teach me. But there's more gold from this guy.
Do Chinese people eat dogs?
So here we go again. And this is the thing, is that he's covered this topic multiple times on this channel, multiple channels, with varying circular reasoning. So let's see the difference here.
The very concept of Chinese is a questionable concept. Then you really have to know, what do you mean by Chinese people eating wild animals? There are people who eat wild animals. Yes, I know. Simple question. Do Chinese people eat dogs?
Well, some people do eat dogs.
Some people do,
Yeah.
right? Some people do.
Yeah.
Some people don't.
Yeah.
Do Chinese people eat dogs?
I guess there's no answer, I would say.
There's no answer.
What? So some people in China eat dogs and some people in China don't eat dogs. There is no answer. Generalizations are dangerous.
What is China anyway? Do you think I'm Chinese?
Then you got to answer. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to answer. If you have a question on if I'm Chinese, so what about Chinese food? What do you mean by Chinese food?
Yes.
Is there such thing called Chinese food? I put a question mark on it. It's trying to remind people, what you actually believe or what you actually know is not necessarily what you know.
He asks, "Do you think I'm Chinese?" And they reply, "It's difficult to answer." Then he says, "Yes, it's difficult to answer. Is there such thing as Chinese food?" I'll put a question mark on that. So nothing exists. In this world, nothing exists. I'm not American. America doesn't have its own cuisine. Chinese food doesn't exist either. And you know what I took away from this? This beautiful bullet point. What you actually know is not necessarily what you know. What does that mean? I literally don't understand it. It's these bullshit, absolute bullshit circular reasoning things that they think are going to appeal to Westerners. The Chinese government thinks that this type of just question the narrative, question all everything around you, that's really going to appeal to the Western mindset. And they drop these truth bombs that literally don't mean anything.
Wild animal consumption has been definitely part of, the Chinese culture. It's like what you believe in. I believe communism is great. You guys are corrupted by capitalism. So that's so bad for you. But one thing you can talk about is, what do you mean by communism? Instead of preaching, you can ask questions.
So he goes on to finally deliver an opinion. I think communism is great, and you guys suck because you're corrupted by capitalism. But then he goes on to say, well, we can just ask questions about what is communism? What does that even mean? And you can ask questions. Here's our truth bomb. Before we judge, we should try to understand by asking questions. In a country that doesn't allow you to do that. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that fascinating? This guy I found absolutely hilarious that this is going to appeal to us, in the free-thinking world. I just thought it was too delicious and juicy to not show that. But I'm going to move on to some other stuff here.
Today I came to the hospital. You have to pass a lot of tests before you enter. Only people who make appointment online can come in. Hospital is one of the most crowded places in China, but not now. It's the first time I see more nurses than patients. I have a friend living in Spain now. Yesterday he told me a story that when he went to the supermarket with a face mask, a child was scared to cry. I'm very confused. What have the child's parents told him? Why do they look down upon and even laugh at those who wear masks?
So enter Roger. This is Roger. He's also on TikTok, gaining speed quickly. This is the other side. So first we had our crying Chinese woman that's, her life is so sad in America and she misses home. Then you have their white Eastern Europeans that are paid to just spout off facts about gunpowder being invented in China. Then you have the pseudo-intellectual circular reasoning guy. This is Roger, who's actually in China. And Roger goes on to talk about how the coronavirus, the response in China was much superior to the rest of the world. And he comes out of nowhere. But he also has the advantage of being on the ground in China, where he goes and shows basic things in daily life that aren't actually basic things in daily life in China to show how amazing it is. So he started off with this kind of material here. And he actually got a decent sized following of English speakers because people are interested to see what it was like in China. Not so much those like Eastern European people. This is a good example of how he's talking about things that are just not the reality. Look at this video about his average Chinese apartment.
Chinese live in apartments instead of villas. My home is on the top of this building. Okay, here we go. I think it should be similar to a Western apartment, except that our kitchen has a door. I'm not rich, just an ordinary person. This is just a very ordinary apartment in China. My apartment is small, but it's big enough for me to live alone, and too big to clean alone. Here is a balcony. Let me using a drone to show you the panorama.
I'm going to hit by copyright. So he goes on to show you his very average apartment. And my favorite part is that he goes on to say, I'm not rich. I'm just an ordinary person. This is a very ordinary apartment in China. It's small. I only have a piano in one room, and I live alone. And it's so big that I can't even clean it by myself. It's big enough for me to live alone, but too big to clean alone. And let me tell you something. This is not an average apartment in China, guys. And there's a reason that the Chinese government is using pawns like this on Western TikTok to promote this idea. It's face. It's all about face. They want you to think that China has surpassed poverty, it's surpassed coronavirus, surpassed everything, and everybody lives with a modicum of wealth. Now, that apartment may not be anything special to you from where you're from. Maybe it's very impressive to you from where you're from. I can tell you this. In the comments section, so there are some Chinese people who are saying, that is absolutely not an average apartment. I graduated college 5 years ago, and I don't think I could ever have an apartment like this until the day I die. And so they graduate college, and then they get a pretty good job, and they still can't afford something like this. An apartment like this in downtown Fuzhou, where this guy is this apartment's much bigger than the apartment that I bought in China, which was already above middle class, in a city center, in a city that was bigger and wealthier than the city that I lived in. This apartment is probably between $500,000 and $800,000 US. So you're telling me this young man can afford to live by himself, and he got his money, just from working hard, and he runs a tile company apparently. All of that might be the truth, but the idea that this is an average apartment for average Chinese people, if you go to China and you leave a city or leave a city center, you'll see how the average Chinese person lives. Keep in mind, with the top tier really skewing the results, it's still only $10,000 a year on average for the average Chinese person. So how would that person by themselves afford an apartment like that? It's all about face. It's all about showing the Western world that Chinese people have it so good, and it's all because of the Chinese government. So then he goes on to make some more videos, and he talks about more about the coronavirus response and how the West is failing. And he goes to pretty sensitive areas like hospitals, which you're normally not allowed to film in China, especially around this time period. But for some reason, he's allowed to film in these places. And he starts getting a lot of questions, and this is his response.
Hi everyone, I'm Roger. It's been a long time since I last updated my video. I received many private messages from fans asking me if I was in trouble posting video. Some people think that I may be controlled by CPC.
So he addresses them. People were concerned that he wasn't posting, so they said, are you in trouble with the CCP, which he calls the CPC? And he actually he addresses this by laughing at it and then continuing to talk about something completely unrelated. So they really want to quash this idea that Chinese people don't have freedom of speech, that they're all wealthy, they all live in a free environment with a freedom to move around and purchase property and all these kind of luxurious things. And Roger's just a great example of that. Someone trying to appeal to the Western sensibilities that, you know what, maybe everything the media told me about China is wrong. Now, guys, that was just the tip of the iceberg. That's just the TikTok stuff. And like I said, that's the gentle soft power propaganda that I was talking about. The kind of soft power propaganda or hard power propaganda that actually comes out of China for the Chinese audience is actually much more entertaining to me. And I'll cover that in my next video if you guys enjoyed this one. I'll give you a little sneak peek right here.
If you still think you're privileged and superior and don't behave yourself, then you will never be welcomed here.
and will make you pay the price.
Well, why does she have to go into that song? That's totally gonna copyright me. I want to say thank you guys for supporting me on patreon.com/Laowinner6. It's difficult to make money on YouTube these days with all the demonetization and the fact that ad rates are super low. So you guys are really helping us pull through this situation. Also, I know everyone's pretty skint right now because a lot of people are out of work, so I really appreciate that. So consider supporting me over there. I'm really looking forward to getting into the soft or hard power propaganda next week in the video where I cover Chinese TikTok, the Chinese version of TikTok, and we really get into it. I want to say thank you so much, Laowinners, and I'll catch you on the next one.